Scott woke up. When he looked, Kevin was sleeping on the other side of the cave. What he had thought was a dream. Why he dreamed of making out with a bug pony named Kevin, he had no fucking idea. It didn't take long for them to get back to where they were headed. Actually, really didn't take anywhere near as long as they thought it would. However, what was soon to come would leave a mark where they stood. Scott had been tasked with Willow. Scott and Willow would be exploring. Where they would be exploring? The Everfree. To look for some fillies that were misplaced, lost out there. Where exactly they were at? He had no idea. A Pegasus named Derby Hooves told Scott, Isaac, and Willow and the guard that she was missing, that she went out. Decided it'd be fun to play hide and seek. When Mom wasn't looking, she knew that she had ran out in the forest. But where was unknown. They'd need all hands on deck. The day guard split in separate positions. They went in different directions. The day guard went west. Half of the day guard went west. The other half went north. Also with a few of the night guard. The main six, who were still very eager to talk with Scott, agreed to go east. Scott and Willow, knowing they could full handle the situation on their own, went south. While steadying, they had heard a cry for help. Please, some pony, any pony, please help me. It sounded like a scared little filly. Scott immediately ran in that direction. Willow followed, excited, thrilled. Of course, Willow was an animal. Scott wasn't. Well, technically he was, but still. He was logical. He wasn't really up for a fight. The second they entered a new clearing that was beside a river, what he saw could only be described as bullshit. 3 manticores. 3. Were circling around Little Dinky. Scott wasted no time. Immediately, the first thing he did is he deployed his drone. It hovered up. He looked at a certain manticore. It was the third one out of the 3. It flew and began firing at it, rapid pace. And then he had dropped a roller mine that had rolled in the direction of the second manticore, blowing up and shooting fire in its face, causing it to back away, hollering in pain. First manticore was then Scott's main focus, as he began firing at it with his vector, getting to a knee to get more effective accuracy. As he began unloading his clip, Willow had sprinted with great speed over to Dinky. Once Willow had gotten onto her stomach, Dinky was smart and immediately climbed on Willow. As they had ran, they were unlucky. One of the manticores had taken her tail and moved swiftly, smacking Willow on her side, sending Dinky flying, and Willow to slam into a nearby rock, causing one to fall on her leg with a bone-chilling snap. Mark, his blood ran cold. Willow's leg was now trapped under a rock, with her yelping and crying in pain. He was one man down. He looked at Dinky and pointed towards town and yelled, "You need to run right now!" Immediately, it didn't take Dinky more than just a few seconds. She did as she was told and began running. However, Scott knew that he'd have to do something. He reached into his pouch, pulling out a flare gun, aiming it in the air and firing it off. He knew that this would catch their attention. He had immediately switched his loadout up. He was now running an LMG, and second, he was running his shotgun. He pulled out the LMG and began firing, unloading round after round after round, hammering against these tanks. The third one was still occupied with a drone, trying to somewhat evade the penetrating bullets. To them, it felt like a hellish version of a hailstorm. The second one was finally off fire. Now, Scott had two targets to focus his attention on. The first one charged. Second one ran around the side. He immediately looked at the area he was heading to. He was heading for Willow. Scott did something brave. Stupid, but brave. He'd switched his LMG to a sniper rifle as fast as he could, loading an explosive round into it, aiming in and popping off the round. Immediately the round flew through the air, spiraling at an incredible speed, and slamming right into the manticore's right eye. It let out a gruesome, agonizing, pained roar. He immediately yanked back the bolt and pulled in another round, firing at it again. The manticore was almost right in his territory, right in his area of personal space. He took this time to fire off a third round, slamming against the manticore, sending him back a few steps, slamming onto the ground. As he got up, he ran off in pain. The third manticore had managed to swipe at the drone, destroying it. At this point, this next manticore was right up in Scott's grill. Immediately, he unlatched the double barrel in his backpack, immediately yanking it out and firing off both rounds at once, right into the manticore's face. The manticore got a swipe in, slashing the left side of Scott's stomach. He moved back, blood immediately began dripping out. But he held strong, ramming a needle into his leg and yanking it out, throwing it to the floor. Immediately his adrenaline began to hype. He immediately switched his rifle to his Vector and began sprinting at a high pace while firing at them. He was trying to run in circles while shooting. This would buy time. When they both charged at him, he ran at them and immediately did a slide as they both swiped. They missed. He was lucky. When he got back up, however, two of the stingers of both beasts, one rammed into his lower back, the other one rammed into his left bicep, and yanked themselves out. Scott shouted in pain. He immediately did a combat roll, landing a little ways away from them. Quickly, grabbing a frag grenade, he immediately unclipped it and tossed it, immediately backing up more as the first one ran and had blown up. Immediately, bits and chunks of the manticore's face came off. It had fallen over, dead, no chance of it still being alive. However, the first manticore launched its stinger. Scott didn't have a chance. It lodged its way into his throat. As it yanked Scott up, the stinger in his throat, it had yanked him left, and immediately he'd flown, slamming into a tree, both hands gripping at his neck, gripping at his throat. He was going to drown in his own blood. As he sat there gagging, he looked up at his foe, up at the enemy. They had the advantage, the upper hand. However, what they didn't know is Scott was more than happy to die. He pushed himself up while gagging, immediately stumbling, taking his revolver out, and then taking his handgun and began firing them whilst dual-wielding. The thing was not deterred and began charging once more. Scott was choking, gagging on his own blood, with multiple puncture wounds and a slash across his stomach. He had a puncture wound in his lower back and his bicep. He also had a gash in his leg. To top it off, he was choking on his own blood. Scott had holstered his pistol, and Willow looked at him. She knew that look. It was a look that men would give before they would do something regrettable. He wanted to save Willow's life. When the beast was almost on top of him, he yanked out 2 frag grenades. He immediately threw the first one. The beast swatted it with its tail, backing away, and it had blown up on the floor. The beast was apparently smart. He knew that there was no chance. He'd taken this frag grenade and ran at the beast, doing a gargleish scream, a blood-curdled one, unpinning the grenade as Willow barked and yipped in protest, pleading he didn't, but he did. He jumped, immediately when the explosion happened. Everything went blank for a second. He was in the air and slammed onto his back. His pack had flown off and skid across the ground. Isaac immediately came on and decided to say, "Warning, internal bleeding has been detected," and had closed, and then came back on and said, "Warning, dismemberment has been detected. Seek immediate medical attention." Warning, multiple puncture wounds detected. Warning, user's death is imminent. An agent is down. He lay there and looked. His fucking arm was missing. His fucking arm was off. All that was left of his arm just looked like popped sausage. He laid there, gagging on his own blood, as Willow basically screamed his name. Eventually she was able to get free and sprinted over towards Scott. The last thing he had seen was a blue blur. Scott's vision faded into darkness as he was lured into his last peaceful sleep.